All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're talking about a quiet, hard-working machine that is literally protecting your home's lower levels right now. We're breaking down some fascinating insights from Dr. Drain on a critical, yet honestly almost entirely ignored, piece of home infrastructure, the sewage ejector pump. We walk over them, we build our beautiful finished basements around them, but we rarely give them a second thought. Well, at least not until something goes wrong.
Because when things go wrong down there, oh, they go very wrong. I want you to picture the reality of a basement plumbing disaster for a second. We are not just talking about a little puddle on the floor. When below-grade plumbing fails, the results are deeply disruptive and brutally expensive. You're dealing with raw wastewater backups, overpowering odors, severe water damage, and the immediate, stressful need for emergency cleanup crews. It's a total sensory nightmare that can ruin your home's lower levels in a matter of hours.
To avoid that absolute nightmare, you are relying entirely on this unsung mechanical hero. By definition, a sewage ejector pump is a device that quietly moves wastewater from basements, low-lying bathrooms, and below-grade fixtures, lifting it all up to the main sewer line. Think about the gravity-defying job this machine performs every single day. It operates completely in the shadows, fighting a constant uphill battle against corrosive wastewater just to keep your home safe and sanitary.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. The hidden plumbing hero. 2. Why ejector pumps fail. 3. 5 early warning signs. And 4. Taking action and staying safe.
Let's kick things off with part 1. The hidden plumbing hero, defying gravity in your basement. Which brings us to our second section. Why ejector pumps fail. The anatomy of a breakdown.
Now, because sewage is just so much harsher than clean water, even tiny issues can escalate super fast. The first major point of failure, clogs from the wrong items. We're talking about grease, heavy sediment, and those supposedly flushable wipes that are definitely not flushable. It turns into this escalating battle between the pump's motor and non-flushable debris, which ultimately strangles the flow rate or forces the pump to jam up completely.
But even without clogs, the environment itself is kind of the enemy here, bringing us to internal wear. That toxic, septic environment is relentlessly attacking the machine, degrading seals, eating away at the impeller, and wearing down the bearings over time. And this severe mechanical wear usually shows up as slower pumping, abnormal vibration, or you might notice it taking a lot longer to clear the same amount of water.
Then, you've got the brain of the whole operation, the float switch. These systems rely on these little sensors to know exactly when to kick on and off based on the water level. But think about the high stakes of this tiny sensor for a second. If debris causes a switch to stick, the consequences are immediate. Your pump might fail to start at all, letting wastewater just keep rising, or it could run continuously until the motor simply burns itself out.
And finally, we have electrical failures. I mean, a pump is really only as good as its power supply, right? Things like failing capacitors, damaged cords, corroded connections, or moisture sneaking into electrical junction points can completely cut power to the unit. A repeatedly tripped breaker or a persistent no response from your pump, those aren't just minor inconveniences. They are massive warning signs of a motor under heavy load or a critical electrical fault.
Let's move into Section 3, 5 early warning signs. Basically, how to listen, look, and smell for trouble.
So here is your essential checklist of sensory symptoms. First up, listen for any gurgling, grinding, or just unusually loud noises when the pump runs. That's a big indicator of a blockage, air pockets, or worn parts. Watch for slow-draining wastewater, which signals a partial clog or motor wear. Look out for frequent short cycling, where the pump kicks on and off really rapidly. Take note of frequent trip breakers or blown fuses. And finally, pay close attention to any odors or wetness near the unit, which suggests seepage or a discharge leak. If you notice any change in sound, timing, or smell, you absolutely must adjust it promptly.
Let's actually zoom in on one of those signs for a second to see the difference between a healthy machine and one struggling with erratic controls. Under normal operation, the pump turns on, clears the entire chamber of wastewater, and then rests. Pretty straightforward. But with short cycling, it starts and stops repeatedly in very quick succession. This points directly to malfunctioning float controls or pressure sensors that are just failing to read the water level correctly.
Now, a lot of homes have ejector pumps paired with dedicated alarms. Maybe it's a loud beep, a flashing light, or even a smart alert popping up on your phone. If that alarm triggers, investigate it immediately. Do not ignore it. Even if the system seemingly catches up on its own a few minutes later, don't brush it off. These alarms are specifically designed to signal that water is rising beyond expected, safe levels, or that the pump is fundamentally failing to operate.
That brings us to our final section, taking action and staying safe, and specifically setting some boundaries for you as a homeowner.
If you suspect something is off, there are a few really quick, completely safe checks you can do without putting yourself in harm's way. Step 1, simply check your electrical panel to confirm the breaker is actually on. Step 2, stand near the unit and just listen for pump operation during an expected load, like right after a toilet is flushed downstairs. Step 3, visually inspect the area around the unit, looking for obvious leaks, moisture, or standing water. These are your safe observation steps.
But, and this is absolutely crucial, here's where we draw a hard line against DIY. Never, and I mean never, attempt to disassemble the pump or that sealed basin yourself. The internal mechanics of a sewage ejector system must be left to a licensed professional. It is simply not worth the risk to your health or your home.
In fact, let me give you a sobering warning straight from the source material. Avoid disassembling the pump without proper safety precautions. Sewage systems can involve harmful bacteria and electrical risk. Guys, we are talking about raw sewage here. The biological hazards of harmful bacteria, combined with the high electrical risk of a heavy-duty motor sitting in a literal pit of water, make this an incredibly dangerous environment for anyone who isn't trained.
When you actually bring in a licensed professional, they know exactly how to handle this safely. A real professional inspection involves safely opening the system up, physically inspecting the impeller for jams, testing the float operation to ensure the controls are communicating properly, running diagnostics on the electrical components and voltage, and verifying that the discharge piping isn't being restricted by some blockage further down the line.
Because these pumps are absolutely safety critical for your lower levels. Just waiting around for a failure is the worst possible strategy. Preventative maintenance is far and away the most cost-effective approach you can take. Regular inspections, especially if you have an older system or a house with heavy plumbing usage, are your absolute best defense. They drastically reduce the odds of a sudden, catastrophic failure and strictly limit your risk of dealing with a total nightmare backup.
So that brings us to the ultimate takeaway for you today. Take a quick second to think about that sealed basin sitting in your utility room. Is your basement's quietest hero overdue for a checkup? Don't wait for the alarm to sound or for the floor to get wet. Use what you've learned from this explainer, listen to your system, and keep that wastewater flowing exactly where it belongs.